I feel the Spirit moving in me. I feel the Spirit moving in me.
How would you like to learn an amazingly simple practice that will help you to release fear, to release judgment, to release doubt and frustration and anger, and even release limiting thoughts and erroneous feelings that keep you from experiencing the fullest health in mind and body that you can experience? Today, I'm going to show you a simple technique, so hang on and I'll show you in just a moment. A senior monk and a junior monk were traveling together, walking. And at one point they came to a river and that had a very strong current, and they needed to cross this river. And as they were preparing to cross the river, they saw a very beautiful woman that was also trying to cross the river. And the young woman asked if they would help her get across. The monks glanced at each other because they had taken vows not to touch a woman. Then without a word, the older monk picked up the woman and carried her across the river and placed her on the bank on the other side. The younger monk couldn't believe what just happened. After rejoining his companion, he was speechless. And an hour passed, and then 2 hours passed, and then 4 hours passed. And finally, the young monk couldn't stand it anymore. And he blurted out, "As monks, we are not permitted to touch a woman. How could you carry that woman on your shoulders?" The older monk looked at him and replied, "Brother, I put her down on the other side of the river. Why are you still carrying her?" The junior monk in this Zen story represents many of us, bound by the destructive mental activity. He grasped onto the past and kept on reliving it in his mind for hours. On the other hand, the senior monk, who symbolizes a more effective way of dealing with the past, when the situation ended, he didn't mentally carry it anymore. He continued on his journey as if he had not broken his vow. This story is a depiction of our lives. We all go through painful and regretful situations. The two monks represent the two choices that we have in dealing with the past. We can either choose to let it go, or we can choose to hold on to it. Holding on to the past is perhaps the easiest way out, and often what we do as human beings. We subconsciously think that that the past will still serve us in some way. And letting go can sometimes seem terrifying, since we don't know what's waiting for us around the corner. Like the senior monk, we have the choice not to allow the old to affect the new. We must believe that letting go of what has passed is more precious than the gift that we give ourselves by hanging on. The more we dwell on the past, the more we build mental attachments to it and around it, and the more we struggle to release it. This talk is titled, Let Go of Past Hurts. It's the first talk in a 3-talk series that I'm titling Healthy Mind, Healthy Body. This talk series is inspired by a quote attributed to the Buddha. It says, "The secret of health for both mind and body is not to mourn for the past, not to worry about the future, or not anticipate troubles, but to live in the present moment wisely and earnestly." So today's talk comes from the first part of this quote, which says, "The secret of health for both mind and body is not to mourn for the past." We all struggle with the past, don't we? Although the past is gone, we can sometimes tend to keep it alive in our minds. And when we do so, and we think about the past, we can experience a wide range of emotions. Some of them, of course, are good, but other ones are threatening and frightening and horrible, and they drag us down. And lots of times they're not even true. In our attempts to analyze the old, we block the new from arising. To put it differently, thinking of the past restricts the flow that the present wants to bring us. As long as we hold on to the past and its associated negative emotions, we can't fully embrace the possibilities of this moment. It's often our limiting emotions and our limiting feelings and limiting thoughts and beliefs that create suffering and pain and illness for us. We can choose to let go of them, or we can choose to hang on to them. It's our choice. My affirmation for today is, I let go of thoughts, emotions, and beliefs that do not serve me. I am free and healthy in mind and body. At 42, Lester Levinson, who was a physicist, was sent home from the hospital diagnosed with a heart condition. And he was told that he only had a few months to live. In fact, he was warned that even tying his shoes might be enough for him to have another heart attack, which could kill him. And Lester went to the lab within himself, and he looked within to say, what is it that I can do to change my thinking, to change my life, to create healing in my life? And he wanted to let go of these inner limitations and really delve into his consciousness and come up with something that would help him and free him and heal him. And he created the Sedona method. And the Sedona method is an amazingly simple way of letting go of fear and frustration and limiting thoughts and beliefs and feelings, much like the technique I'm going to show you today. And it kind of was instrumental in helping me to come up with this method that I developed. Myrtle Fillmore, Unity's co-founder, was extremely sick. In fact, she said, I had all the ills of mind and body that I could bear. And Myrtle knew and understand that life is simply a form of energy, and that this energy can be guided by our consciousness. Myrtle said, we can communicate with this intelligence by thinking and talking. And you might know that she spoke affirmative truths to her body, and she was able to heal her condition by talking to her body and telling her body how much she loved it and how whole and perfect it was and how loving it was. And I like this. She writes, I didn't let any worried or anxious thoughts into my mind. And I stopped speaking gossipy, frivolous, petulant, angry words. She didn't complain about her condition or participate in gossip. And I love this, especially right now, because our Aloha groups are working with no complaining. In fact, many of us have these bracelets on that we move from wrist to wrist when we find ourselves complaining. And isn't it interesting that Myrtle Fillmore realized that it was her thinking, her complaining that created her illness. And so she was one of the first people that I really know of that decided not to complain. And she worked with her body, and she communicated love to her body. And she was able to release and work with her body to forgive her for any negative energy that she gave her body. She said that I stopped calling myself weak. I stopped calling myself inefficient and diseased. And I affirmed that my body is strong and powerful. And she even promised, she said, I promise that I will never retard the free flow of life in my body and in my mind with false words and thoughts. Wow, that's so powerful, isn't it? We can choose to let go and to live more freely, more fully, and develop healthy minds and healthy bodies. When I was a boy, I remember that I had lots of resistance to doing my homework, to going to school, to preparing for tests, or to doing yard work. And I can look back now and I can see that I had some of the same resistance in the early jobs that I have. It was just kind of a belief or something that I carried with me into my jobs, and it made everything seem difficult, my jobs being my occupations. And I thought of myself as lazy. In fact, I know that some adults around me called me lazy. And so this became a part of my belief system and how I thought of myself. And everything changed for me in 1993. I took a Unity workshop on letting go, and I believe that workshop was called I Let Go and Let God. And this workshop changed my life. You know, I was able to explore my thoughts and my feelings about being lazy. And we had a process similar to what Myrtle talked about with her healing of affirming for ourselves. And the inspiration that I got in this class inspired me to create a method that I used on my own, and I found it very powerful in my life. And I've used this process many times to release toxic feelings, toxic thoughts, emotions that didn't work for me, and situations. I've also used it to let go of my thoughts about people who were toxic in my life. And so I'll use my example of being lazy and how I learned this technique and used it around the idea that I was lazy. You know, the first thing I did was to consider the idea that I was lazy. And just, not to give it any energy, but just to consider it and sort of have a relationship with it and feel it, and to feel, what does it feel like when I think of myself as lazy? And I just was really with that, and in a sense had some compassion for my feelings and some compassion for me for even having this experience of feeling lazy. And it's possible that the feelings of being lazy may even have benefited me in some way. And as part of this healing process, I believe that it's so important to not try and push something away that we don't want to experience, out of anger or a disagreement, but instead to have compassion for it, to recognize that we have a relationship with it, and to, in a sense, have some affection for it, because we know that when we try and push something away out of anger, what we push against resist. So I just let myself have my feelings around this idea of being lazy. And then I ask myself, am I willing to let this go? Am I willing not to think of myself as lazy anymore? Have I come to a place in my consciousness and in my life where I'm done with it, where I can be at peace with it and let it go? And then I did a meditation, and this is often part of my practice, is to have a meditation and realize that there's something here that I want to release. And often I like to give it a color. And the color that came up for me around this idea or this belief of being lazy was yellow. And I even can picture that yellow entity, or yellow, it almost feels like an entity, right? It feels like it's real and alive. And I picture it as being sort of yellow and kind of sticky, right? And I could even kind of feel it. And then what I thought I would do, it just occurred to me to imagine that I could dip a drinking straw into this mass, into this feeling yellow, sticky substance, and take a little bit of away and put it off to the side. And it's interesting, I came up with this idea, and I noticed that I felt just a little bit better. And so I took some more, and I took some more, and I imagined what it felt like to stick this drinking straw in this yellow mass and take a little bit of it away. And I did that until I got bored with the process. And then I decided to create an affirmation and a denial around what I was doing, because I understand the power of words, as I know you do. And I came up with, I let go of this thought of being lazy, and I am filled with joy and enthusiasm. And then I gave thanks for the releasing that I was able to do. The fact that I could set my mind and have my focus on releasing something that wasn't working for me anymore. And I have to tell you, this didn't happen magically in one event, in one meditation, in one practice. It took weeks and months for me to really work on this idea until that spot, that yellow sticky mass, is gone. And now I rarely think of myself as being lazy. And if I do, it's just a glimmer of a thought that passes by that has no more energy around it. So I'd like to practice with you today in a meditation this process that I did and that I created and that I do often. So I invite you to close your eyes and take a deep breath, just to breathe into this moment, to be present right now with whatever is going on with you, wherever you are, and just breathe into that. Knowing that this is a safe place, that you are a powerful spiritual being having a physical experience, a powerful spiritual being that has the ability to choose your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. And in this safe place, imagine something that you're willing to begin releasing today. Maybe it's a thought or a feeling, a belief, something that you have about yourself. It might even be a thought or a feeling that comes up when you think of somebody who perhaps has affected you in a negative way. And just be with this feeling. Not like you're married to it, but just like you know it's there. And that you can feel its energy. You can feel how it affects you. And just being with it. And realizing in your heart of hearts that it's time to let this go. And breathing in and breathing out. And to ask yourself, am I willing to let this go? Am I willing to begin this process or continue this process today to let it go? And then imagine that this feeling, this thought, this energy has a color. What color would it be? And can you see that in your spiritual eyes, in your mind's eye? And maybe it has a texture. Is it light? Is it heavy? Is it dense? Is it solid? Is it stringy? Is it like the ocean? What is the texture? What is the composition of this thought or belief or feeling? And then imagine that perhaps this thought or feeling or mass is off to one of your sides, your left or your right side. And just to see it there, to feel it there. And I invite you to take a straw, like a drinking straw like I did, or a spoon, or even a handful of this emotion, this feeling, this colored mass, and to take it and to move it to the other side of your body and to let it go. And to do it with a gentle, easy movement that's peaceful, that's loving. And to breathe as you do so. To take it little by little, piece by piece, drop by drop. Move it across your body and let it go on the other side. And perhaps as you do so, you'll begin to realize that you're feeling a bit lighter. Because this thought, this feeling, this emotion, this belief is no longer a part of you. As you take it and place it on the other side and let it go. And now it's separate from the original mass and will not come back. And then think of an affirmation. Kind of the one that I used is really, it's a denial and an affirmation. And perhaps if nothing comes to you, you might think of this one and use this one for this practice today. And that would be, I let go of this thought, this feeling of being what? Weak, stupid, afraid, powerless, lazy, a failure, guilty, overwhelmed, and let it go. Maybe even imagine taking a bit more. Taking it across your body. And I let go of this thought, of this feeling, of this belief. I let it go. And I am filled with joy and enthusiasm. And then find that place within yourself that feels freer right now, that feels whole right now, that is healing right now in your mind, in your body. Perhaps you can sense this healing that's happening in you right now, and to give thanks for that. Maybe to say, I am so grateful. I am so grateful. I am so thankful that I can let this go, that I can embrace and embody the fullness of health in mind, in body, in spirit. And let's just take a moment and rest in this healing place in the silence. Breathing in and breathing out. I invite you to begin to bring your awareness back to this moment right here, right now. Namaste. I honor you in your practice. I admire you in your practice. And what we did today is, as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't just happen often in a moment. Sometimes it does. But a practice like this, where we're really doing such deep work, can often require that we practice it over and over again. And so I invite you to do this practice on a regular basis, once a day, once a week, depending on the depth of that which you desire to release. The more often you may have to practice this releasing technique. And I'll put the details in our Walk Your Talk so you can remember how we did it today, and certainly invite you to do as I did. This practice I created came from other people's work, and I found something that worked for me, so I invite you to find something that works for you as well. The best way that we can accept joy, the best way that we can accept happiness, a way that we can create a healthy and peaceful mind, the way that we can create a healthy body is by letting go of the thoughts and the feelings and the beliefs that don't serve us anymore. In doing so, we stand in our power so we can experience healthy minds and healthy bodies. Isn't that what we want? So that we can experience and express the fullness of our spiritual nature and be a gift in our lives and a gift to the world. So God bless you on your work, and thank you for participating in this healing work that will transform your life and affect the world. I let go of negative thoughts and emotions that don't serve me, and I am free and healthy in mind and body and spirit. And so it is. So I invite you at this time to prepare your love offerings and your contributions to Unity Church of Maui. We are grateful for what you bring to us, certainly in consciousness, and what you bring to us in the green energy of money that helps us to continue to do this work and pays for our lovely building and our staff. And so we're eternally grateful for all that you give. And I hope that this technique that we worked with today makes a difference in your life. And isn't that why we do this? Certainly why I do this work. So as you consider what you're going to give to Unity Church of Maui, maybe it's a check. I invite you to hold it in your hands, and if it's an amount that you're going to donate, to hold that amount in your mind, giving thanks for it with your healthy mind, your healthy body, and your healthy spirit, just to give thanks for the work that Unity does. So as you hold your gift, let's affirm together our affirmation and our prayer of prosperity, which begins through a grateful, giving heart. My mind and life overflow with the abundance of God's all-providing, infinite supply. And so it is. Amen. And if you're wondering how you can give, you can always send a check to Unity Church of Maui at 483 South High Street in Wailuku. And you can also go to our website, unityonmaui.org, and click on our Totally Save Donate button and make a donation there. And thank you in advance for your gifts. Let's see, got just a couple announcements today. Next week, we continue with this 3-talk series on healthy mind, healthy body. Next week's talk is titled calming the worried mind. Remember, Buddha said the secret of health for both mind and body is not to mourn for the past, not to worry about the future, nor to anticipate troubles, but to live in the present moment wisely and earnestly. So next week we'll look at and focus on the second part of this quote, which says not to worry, don't worry about the future or anticipate troubles. And we'll have a lot of fun with that. I'm excited about it and looking forward myself to experiencing this calming of the mind, calming of the worried mind. And that'll be happening right here, same time next week. You may know that we are in the midst of a capital campaign to raise funds to buy a new van. We anticipate with the vaccine coming out that before too long, we will be celebrating with each other in our amazing, can't wait. Guess you can tell how great it would be to be able to do this in person. And so we're going to need a van to shuttle people back and forth from the county building. And I'd like to give you the opportunity to help us to get this van so that we can shuttle people easily when the time comes. This week we had some donations that came in for $400, and you might remember that Yana committed last week, I think it was, to matching the next $500 that came in. So that $400 that was donated this week will then become $800, and so that's the good news. And even the better news is that there's another $100 that she will match for the next gift of $100. So thank you for contributing to our van. It's going to be great, and we can't wait to be back in our building. As you can tell, can't keep wear my emotions on my sleeve. Let's see what else. So if you'd like to join us to talk, join us for Sunday morning. We do a Zoom at 10 o'clock, and you can find the links to our Zoom call on our website and in our newsletter. And if you'd like to find more of our talks and music, you can always go to our YouTube page, which is Unity on Maui YouTube. And we've got many more messages and much more music up there. So I think that's about it for today. Why don't we end together by praying and affirming together the prayer for protection, which begins, the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us wherever we are. God is. God bless you, my friend. I love you. I bless you. I appreciate you. I behold the Christ in you. Until next time, aloha.
Where I live, they're all raised